My name is Hannah, and this is my beauty budget. Hi friends! It's time for another video in which I talk about new releases. What I always do for these is I don't necessarily talk about the freshest and newest. I just go through and I talk about the things I want to talk about, because there are so many new releases to which my response is just, I don't care, or I think it's boring, or a lot of new releases, my response is I don't pay those prices for that kind of thing. Like, for example, the Fenty brow products, I have sort of a passing interest in the fact that that's a new release, but I don't buy high-end brow products because to me that's a short-term staple. They're things that I cycle through and use up really, really quickly, so I don't spend more than a couple dollars on that kind of thing. You know, so there are a lot of new releases that just roll off of me like water off a duck's back, and I don't generally talk about those in these videos. I pick the ones that I have something to say about, that I feel excited to talk about and invested in talking about. I also did just declutter my entire makeup collection. Like yesterday I sat down and I filmed declutter after declutter after declutter. So I am feeling extremely reluctant to want anything new, because there's nothing like decluttering your collection, getting it down to a really beautifully edited version of what you have, and also reminding yourself of how much stuff has been clogging up the works. There's nothing like doing that to turn you off from a bunch of new makeup. So I'm feeling disinclined to be into any of this, but that's not true though. Some of it's really beautiful. Let's go ahead and get into the meat of the video. So as I was saying as I was boldly declaring that I felt disinclined to want anything, I cast my eyes down and they fell on the first page that I have open on my computer, which is the new palette that's been announced from McGrath. And I mean, I was not lying in that I feel completely disinclined to want to buy this. I want it in theory, and it's because I've never considered buying a McGrath palette. They're so expensive, but that's not necessarily the turnoff. It's that there hasn't been a release of one that feels like it's the one that I've been waiting for. Now, feeling like there's one that I've been waiting for doesn't necessarily mean that when it's released I'll buy it. But I do frequently feel like I'll look at a whole range of palettes, for example, and I'll identify which one would be the one for me if I were going to buy one. For example, I don't own any of the ColourPop monochromatic palettes, but if I were to buy one, I know which one it would be, because I kind of like thinking about that. I like picking out the one that's my style. But I feel really strongly that just because there's one that's my style doesn't mean I need to buy that one. It doesn't mean that I need to own that one. Even if it would be my exact style, it doesn't mean that I need to buy it, whether it's a $16 ColourPop palette or a $125 McGrath palette. It's just one of the ways that I check in about my own style and my own preferences. It's one of the ways in which I enjoy thinking about and curating my own style, is to kind of look at what a brand is doing and be like, that's the Hannah one. It's just one of the ways we like create identity, if that makes sense. So after kicking this video off with some existential philosophy, this is definitely the most suited to me of all the McGrath palettes that have been released so far. It might be neck and neck with Bronze Seduction. Up until this point, that was the one I was like, if I were to buy one, that's the one I would buy. If I got to pick one, that's the one I would pick. But now I feel like if I got to pick one, it might be this. And I feel like the thing I like about it is the thing I liked about the Jackie Aina palette the last time I did this, when I talked about that palette. It's got these sort of swampy, earthy tones in it, like a twilight magical jungle. And so that purple, it's not a bright, it's like a dusky ashes of violets kind of color. And it's got that really, really kind of gritty, earthy khaki. And then it's got these beautiful gleaming neutrals, and those are the shadows. If I were to buy a McGrath palette, I would be after those really, really special gleaming, color shifting, light reflecting shadows in colors that I reach for a lot. So neutrals, secondary and tertiary colors like this green and this purple. This one is really just hitting it out of the park for me personally. So I saw it and I was like, yeah, McGrath, like something really, really up my alley. That's exciting to see. I love that. I have a lot of love for it. I have a lot of excitement about it. I like it. But I didn't for a moment. I didn't even have a moment where I looked at this and I was like, oh, maybe I should save up my money and buy for that. I just didn't have buy for that. You know, maybe I should save up my money and buy that. I didn't have that moment because I just decluttered my eyeshadow palettes. And so I just feel this sense of total abundance. It's like a sense of abundance and curation at the same time. Refined, cleaned up abundance in my life and in my life of eyeshadow. I don't know. I have fewer, nicer things right now, and I'd like it to stay that way. So maybe that helped me not want to buy this. Maybe I wouldn't have wanted to buy it anyway because it's just so expensive, and buying an eyeshadow palette that's this expensive is not really like a life plan, part of my life plan right now. But either way, I think it's truly beautiful. It's probably my favorite eyeshadow palette that we've ever seen from Pat McGrath. Okay, the next, in stark contrast, I just have to touch on this extra spicy gingerbread palette because it's so funny. It's so funny, you guys. I've been like laughing my butt off over here the whole time that this has been happening, and every time anyone has talked about it, it is so funny. It seems like a practical joke that a brand would issue an eyeshadow palette with lovely, rich, bright colors, which is what they did last year, right? This like really, really dynamic, especially for Too Faced. It had those beautiful neutrals, but it also had that like bright pink. I think it had some greens. It was a very spicy palette for Too Faced. So they made that palette and called it the gingerbread palette, and then that they would turn around a year later and release literally a dampened version, like a watered down version of the same palette. It's literally like someone took the gingerbread palette and like threw a wet blanket over it. So they're releasing that and they're calling it extra spicy. They're calling it extra spicy. It's so funny. It's so funny that I cannot comprehend how it got through whatever team makes these decisions. Like I am frequently bewildered about what corporations choose to do, not just in the makeup world, but in general. Like I frequently wonder like who put the stamp of approval on this. Like I go around wondering that all the time in my life, but never to this level. Like this to me, it seems like somebody on the inside is like playing a massive practical joke on Too Faced and on the world from the inside. That's literally the only explanation that I can come up with. It's the funniest thing to happen in makeup this year. Okay, this is very interesting. This is a release on which I keep ping-ponging. This is the new Naked palette from Urban Decay. So the Naked Honey. When I first saw it, I was like, I had the same reaction that I had when I saw the Urban Decay Naked Cherry palette. I was like, honey isn't this color. What are you doing? Like there are so many beautiful color associations with honey. If you Google honey and you look at the first 100 images, that none of them are any of these colors, which is how I felt about the Naked Cherry palette. And when I talked about the Naked Cherry palette in this style of video, I did like a vignette of different colors of cherries that flashed across the screen to make the point that none of those colors were in the palette, even though there are so many different colors of cherries. So I was just completely bewildered. And I was similarly bewildered. That was my first thought when I saw this. I was like, where's the honey? Then my second thought was, if you cover up that green in the middle, this is like the brownest palette ever. And it also there isn't much tonal variation. And I was less bewildered than with the Too Faced, much less bewildered, because that's bewilderment on like a whole other level. But I was kind of like maybe you need a fresh hire on your creative team, Urban Decay. Like that was my feeling. But then but I didn't dislike it. Like I saw it and I was like, that's beautiful. I think that this is very beautiful. I love these tones, and there is a darker brown. Like I actually feel, I see it and I'm like, gosh, it's beautiful in this really specific way, but it's such a big palette and it's so many eyeshadows, and I didn't understand why there wasn't more of a dynamic range, because they're working with so many shadows. It's like this extremely close gradient from shadow to shadow. And I don't understand that about this, and I didn't understand that about the Naked Cherry. And so I'm starting to think it's like something that I don't understand about what they're trying to do with the Naked range. And that thought, which was just a baby, was like birthed into the world by the women who run Beauty News when I was watching them this past week, I think. And Kat on Beauty News was saying that she made the point that this is the naked range. So if they're trying to make nude palettes, they're trying to make neutral palettes. The idea is like a naked eye, like a no makeup eye, an easy eye, a sort of pale version of the concept that they're letting guide each palette. She voiced the idea that that's the whole point of a naked palette. And that, it kind of clicked for me. And I was like, oh, so it wasn't a cherry palette. It was a naked version of a cherry palette. And this isn't supposed to be like an intense honey palette. It's supposed to be the sort of washed out watercolory version of honey. And that, I mean, not everyone understands that. I mean, I'm guessing maybe that's what the people on the creative team are thinking, that's why this keeps happening with Urban Decay naked releases. So I feel a little bit less like aggressively confused about this palette now because I've incorporated what Kat was saying into my understanding of what they're trying to do. And I do think that it's quite pretty. I look at it and I have a feeling that it would look a lot better in person. I hope that's true because I do feel like it just looks a little bit washed out. I don't know. I'm kind of in the middle on this release. I'm like, if I were going to make a honey palette, this isn't what it would look like. And it might just be that I'm not totally on board for the idea of naked X, naked Y, and naked Z palettes because I tend to want like more light, more texture and kind of craziness on the light reflective end of things and more color. And I also tend to want more darkness and griminess and grittiness on the dark end of things. Like for me with my makeup, the spectrum is broader from light to dark and the textural spectrum is broader. But if they're trying to make palettes that sort of hang out in the middle and that run a gradient from here to here, when the spectrum is really from here to here of color and texture and light and dark, then they're succeeding. So it might be that this is exactly what they're trying to do. I need to move on to another thing. The next release I decided to talk about is the one from ABH. They're all eyeshadow palettes, right? I'm talking about a bunch of eyeshadow palettes, but it seems like a bunch have just been released. The big square Norvina 2 palette, I really don't like this. And here I'm talking about my taste. Like I'm sharing with you my taste. And I'm fully aware that this has to do with my taste and my preferences. There's nothing grungy about this palette. There's nothing, now and this is kind of a judgy thing for me to say, but I feel like it's not chic. I feel like it's not edgy. I feel like it's very primary. It potentially lends itself to graphic looks. And I know that graphic looks are still very much in the kind of Instagram paid my number graphic look. They can be chic, they can be edgy. So like there's a way to do that. I understand that this palette could be used to create really wonderful editorial looks. I understand that, but it plucks no strings of my heart. And it also looks a little bit jumbled and it's so big. I don't want it. And I don't feel particularly appreciative of it, and it doesn't inspire me, and I'll be curious to see how it fares. That's my main feeling. My strongest feeling about this palette is that I will be curious to see how it fares in the world. But I know that not everybody likes what I like. Not everyone only wants grungy duochrome glitter all over their face. So probably a lot of people will really love this. All right, those were the only mainstream releases that I could find that interested me enough to talk about them. But there are actually a bunch of indie releases that I'm interested in talking about. This might be partly because I'm starting to get more interested in indie makeup, but I think it also might just be because of what has happened to be released lately. But this one, the Kaleidos releases, I skipped over talking about them last time because I'm not that into neon makeup, and the blue and orange palette, I'm not that into teal. These colors they're not for me, right? So when I saw the release, I was like, oh, interesting, but they're not for me. But I recently received as a gift the sci-fi futurism palette from Kaleidos, the green one, and the quality is so good and the packaging is so beautiful that I have become more interested in these. I still don't feel like I would be, you know, deeply gratified to work with them, like the colors and the color arrangements. You know, neither of them kind of rings the same bells as the green one for me. And in fact, I even like the other ones that they've released, like the bronze one, the one with the pink in it, the other ones that they released with the green one. I even like those better than I like these brand new ones that are coming out. I just have a sort of rekindled interest in Kaleidos because I've now actually played with some of their eyeshadows and the quality is very, very high. Did I talk about these before though? Now that I'm talking about them, I feel like maybe I talked about them before. I'm becoming senile. If I did, it was at a time when I was less interested in them than I am now. That's all I'll say. Every time I see them now, I'm like, I keep going to their Instagram page and like looking at the pictures and being like, maybe I could make that blue work. Not like I'm about to run out and buy these. I'm more inspired by this release than I was 2 weeks ago when I think maybe I did actually talk about this. Oh, this is so interesting. This palette, I'm going to throw the picture up on the screen right now. I gasped when I saw this. I was scrolling through Trendmood. I was like, nothing is interesting, nothing is pretty, nothing is me, nothing is different. And then I was like, what is that? And I thought it was from Nabla when I first saw it because they recently released those cuties, those palettes that I actually really am drawn to. Like they're very, very beautiful. And this is just to me so different from what is currently being released and so beautiful. The tones, it's like cool, literally cool, not like cool, like yeah man, cool, but like it's cool toned, but in this pastel-y way. And there's a black, and then it's got that warm shimmer and that warm dark. I just think I have never liked any releases from Lime Crime. Any of the Venus palettes, I've never been drawn to them. I look at them and I'm like, so what? There's never been a Lime Crime palette that I felt in any way drawn to. In fact, I've said this before on my channel, but someone once offered to send me a couple Lime Crime palettes and I was like, no, thank you. Like I have so many palettes and there's nothing about them that speaks to me. This speaks to me. This color story. I'm just like, be still, literally all the strings of my heart. Because I'm not going to buy this. I might actually try to create a dupe. You know what I'm going to do? As soon as this video is over, I'm going to create a dupe palette for this because I think I do have, I might not have that white. I might not have like a bright white eyeshadow like that. But I don't know if that's really the thing that's defining this palette for me. It's like those silvers, that taupey pink, the fact that there's a black and a dark berry, like a dark burgundy. But then there's that weird matte blue that looks like a color you might paint a house in New England. I don't know if I have an eyeshadow that color either. So it'll be interesting. I might try either duping this or duping the vibes. I'm not interested in buying it. I'm not interested in purchasing from Lime Crime. I'm not interested in buying this palette. I've never bought anything from Lime Crime. Don't want to break the membrane. So all of these feelings are not causing me to like want to go to the website and want to buy this. I'm just really inspired by this photograph, this color story, this idea. I just think it's cool. And I wanted to put the picture up on the screen and talk about it and share my feelings. And then the Sugarpill palette, I feel not that way about in terms of the colors. Like I see it, this little mini palette that Sugarpill has released, I see it and I'm just like, okay, another rainbow palette with bright colors. Like I would never use that. I have one rainbow palette with bright colors, it's the electric palette. I rarely reach for it, but when I do need something like that, it's there. And so that is all I need. We're good. However, I think that this is like so overdue from Sugarpill. They really, it's a very smart release. And it's also, I feel like something they should have done 2 years ago. Like if they'd done it 2 years ago, I might have bought it before my no-buy year. I think there are a lot of people who worship Sugarpill palettes and singles and are so invested in makeup and so invested in color that they've purchased like full palettes or lots of singles. And then there's a whole population of people who have an interest, even a rather deep interest in that same kind of makeup, but aren't passionate enough or aren't collectors enough to have ever bought any of them because they have been so expensive and the pans have been so big for the whole time. And that whole group of people that whole entire population, which is probably way bigger than the population of people who have gone whole hog with Sugarpill over the past several years, that whole population, this palette is for them. But I was part of that population a couple of years ago, and then I've sort of like slowly drifted on to other things. And I wonder how many other people are like that. Like, I wonder for how many of us did Sugarpill kind of miss the boat by waiting so long to release any kind of palette with smaller pan sizes, basically. So I'm very happy to see this. I feel like I'm slandering Sugarpill. I don't mean to be doing that, because when I saw this, I was like, you go Sugarpill. You're doing it. You're doing the thing. Good choice. Get it. I'm for it, you know? That's how I feel about this, but it's because of all of the premise is what I was just explaining. Yeah, that's all I have to say about this release. Okay, now I have some smaller indie brands, and then I have a couple of brands that I don't know if they've released anything new, but I'm like, it's like what's on my radar right now. That's like the little bonus content at the end of this. Like, what would I be buying if I were wealthy? So I wanted to touch briefly on these Kristen Lee Cosmetics releases. I mean, it's just like, they're so pretty. Some of you have tagged me in this on Instagram. It's like these really intense duochrome and multichrome liquids, and they're so pretty and they're so me, and I just wanted to say that. However, again, I just decluttered my collection. I just got those Cliona multichromes to play with. I'm completely overwhelmed with extraordinary makeup right now. And I actually, when I had my camera in the overhead position, I filmed a video in which I swatched all of my most extraordinary eyeshadows. It was like all up and down both arms. And there are so many of them, and they're so special. And only a few of them were the ones from Cliona. Most of them are ones that I purchased myself or ones that I've had for a long time. But all of them are extraordinary. So I look at this Kristen Lee release, and I'm like, these are extraordinary. Wow. And it's a small indie brand. Wow. So beautiful. So cool. But it's not just that I'm not hurting for makeup. I'm not even hurting for truly extraordinary, knock your socks off, like multi-chrome shifting, glistening eye makeup. Like, in this exact specific category, I have plenty. And I was just reminding myself of that this morning when I filmed that video. So I look at this with joy in my heart and absolutely no desire to buy it. One that did test me a little bit, though, I didn't buy anything, but it has tested me. I don't remember what I was doing. I think I was looking on Instagram at the hashtag indie makeup hashtag or something. The indie makeup hashtag. Still learning how to use Instagram, you guys. I don't know if you know that. I'm still learning. I think you do. I think it's obvious. Anyway, I was scrolling through and I saw a little video of this product. I'll put a picture of it up on the screen. It's by Beauty Bar Baby, which I had never heard of, and they are multi-chrome eyeshadow flakes. So they're like these flaky micas that are multi-chrome, super textural, and you know me, right? What I want is shiny, color shifting, textural products for the eyes. And this is that to the nth degree. So I was like, what is that? And I went to the website. It seems like what happened is they just restocked this entire collection, and then a bunch of it sold out really quickly. So they were putting it on Instagram to talk about the fact that they'd restocked, and I don't know if they're new or not. They had just restocked, and I sort of considered maybe buying one to try it out on my channel, and then the idea just faded into the distance, as they so often do when you don't act on them right away. Those impulses to buy things, they so often just fade away. Like 2 days later, you're like, what? I forgot. Like, I actually wanted to mention this in this video, and I couldn't remember the name of the shop. I had to do a bunch of research to pull it back up, because that's how far into the history of my memory it had the history of my memory. That's how far into my memory it had slipped. I'm interested in maybe one day trying something like this or this kind of thing. And I also wanted to ask you guys, has anyone tried one of these Beauty Bar Baby multi-chrome eyeshadow flakes pots? What's it like? Is it good? Tell me everything. Oh, so this isn't a small indie brand, but Lethal Cosmetics. I don't think I've ever talked about on here. I saw this picture. I've been actually paying relatively close attention to they just released some new colors, and I just love the aesthetic. I love the aesthetic of Lethal Cosmetics. I love the square pans. I really, really love that. I love how they can be packed together in a palette with no space in between. I love the fact that you can build your own palette on their website. That's really, really in line with what I like with makeup these days. I really like building my own, curating my own color stories. And the tones are stunning. And this picture that I'm going to put up, which shows square swatches of all of the new colors, it's just stunning. Look at those tones. And I don't even love mattes. I'm all about, again, like the shimmers. Like I'm all about the weird flaky textural stuff. But there's something about the balance of tones. I always appreciate it when a makeup brand is releasing eyeshadows with sophisticated and subtle tone balance. That's what I feel like is missing from that Norvina palette. It's just like bright purple, bright blue, primary red, like color, you know? And this, it's just like the balance of that sky blue, the one that's labeled 2 on the blue side in the upper right-hand corner. It's like blue doesn't always glow like that. It doesn't always have that kind of vibration. If it's slightly more pastel or slightly less green or there's a little bit too much white in it, then it can be more flat. But it's like they tinkered with every ingredient, every color ingredient, to just get it to that point of vibration. So you look at it and you feel like it's humming, you know? And I feel like that about all of these colors. I feel like they have been meticulous about balancing it. And so the colors are, you know, there are blues and creams and greens and purples all over everywhere and filling our collections. Like we all have that. But I feel like by curating these colors so carefully, they've made something unique, and that's very rare. So I applaud them. I'm really happy to see this. Again, I'm not going to make a purchase. Like I'm not going to buy eyeshadow. I'm not buying eyeshadow right now. I have so much. I have enough to work with to create content for my channel. So I'm mostly just following their future career with great interest. And I love seeing people like Teresa review their shadows and do looks with their shadows. I'm a fan from afar of this brand, and I really like this new release. All right, that's it for the new releases, but here's the bonus content. Make Beauty and Flesh Beauty. I for some reason got routed to the Make Beauty website and to the Flesh Beauty website in the same way. I think it was because everyone's talking about Euphoria, which I haven't watched, and the makeup looks from Euphoria. So I haven't watched the show. I don't really know anything about it, but I've been intrigued by what the reaction to the makeup looks implies about the makeup looks. So I started looking them up. I was like, I want to see images of like the Euphoria makeup looks. So I started Googling it, got a bunch of like listicles and a bunch of like articles where you have to click through to see it. It's really annoying, you know. But I kept sort of seeing like this was made with this and clicking through and finding like Instagram pages of people who review certain kinds of makeup and then ending up on either the Make Beauty site or the Flesh Beauty site. Not because Make Beauty and Flesh Beauty products were necessarily used in the Euphoria looks or the Euphoria inspired looks. It just seemed like these products were heavily represented on the Instagram pages of the people who were also doing Euphoria inspired looks, if that makes sense. It was like this corner of the beauty community that's all about like makeup brands that just have one short, one syllable word as their name, like make, flesh. And that's it, those two. So I went to the Make website and I put a bunch of stuff in my cart. Their lipstick colors are so beautiful. Usually I look at a lipstick range and I'm like, there might be one color that twangs one heartstring. In the Make Beauty matte lipstick range, every color twangs every heartstring. They are so stunning. It's like there's like a burnt tangerine and like a burnt rust. There's one called Putty. I really, really, really want to try a lipstick from Make. And a couple of the other things that are on this site have really intrigued me. And I love the gender inclusivity message. They're all about blurring the lines. They're all about being like makeup is for everyone. They really, they subtly promote that on their site. And I really, really, really love that aspect of it too. So I'm super interested in Make. And then I'm super interested in Flesh Beauty. They released a new foundation. So this is new releases, actually. Flesh released a new foundation, and I saw some reviews and I clicked through. And I've always been like vaguely interested, but since I was actually on the site looking at the products, all of a sudden I'm like, I want to try the Firm Flesh Thick Stick. I want to try the Flesh Pot. I want to try the lipsticks. I did the same thing. I put like 5, they're all of these different kinds of highlighters that they had. Just all of a sudden I'm deeply intrigued by both Make Beauty and Flesh Beauty. They are on my radar. I'm not going to make these purchases. There's a bunch of stuff there's like 4 things in my cart on each website. And so on each website, I have like a $125 cart because everything's like small and, you know, it's like Glossier prices and you're like $18 for a thing. But then when you put 4 or 5 of them in your cart, you're suddenly paying $125. I'm definitely not here for that right now. I'm not buying really anything these days, not really buying makeup. I'm saving up my money. I really want to buy way fewer, way nicer things in the next couple of months. That's my secret goal that I haven't revealed yet. So I'm not going to do it, but I am intrigued and I do want it. That is it. This video is over. It's time to close the curtain. Let me know what you think down below. Let me know if you've tried Flesh. Let me know if you've tried Make. Let me know if you've tried Cake. That should be my makeup line. Cake Beauty. Cake by Hannah. You heard it here first. And don't forget to take extra good care of yourself this week so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.